Hello, colleagues. It's Mike Anthony and Lauren Clark from the University of Alberta, and we were meditating out loud on the Canadian Electrical Code. So go ahead, Lauren.
So for where we're at in the cycle, we got the 2015 version of the Canadian Electrical Code that was put out in around early 2015. I think it was adopted to law in most provinces, over the next few months or so after it was published. The big change, one of the biggest changes, was in hazardous locations. We went from the we went to more, I think, the European system, trying to be more lined up with their methodology, the way that they discuss it. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because I don't actually get into hazardous areas very much myself. We went from, I think, class to div, or class to zone. I have to look it up to be 100%, but I remember that was one of the biggest changes, and I think actually we've fallen out with our alignment with yourselves in the U.S. with the NEC, and I think that we've gone to the European standard. So that's going to create some interesting issues in terms of markings and whatnot, because now the products have to have markings of multiple systems to be able to be sold in different jurisdictions in North America.
So so hazardous locations generally in the U.S. is informed by the fire characteristics, flammability, explosion characteristics, or likelihood of explosion. And so, of course, you have to have your controls that manage that to be able to survive an accident. So that a lot of what goes on in the U.S. and it's Chapter 5 generally are ones at which you try to protect your electrical systems, especially the controls, that try to manage and reduce the fire or explosion. So you say that CSA will then take its inspiration from, or at least the next revision will take its inspiration from the approaches of the European system, which generically, and I guess we would have to have documents. I can run this by Giuseppe in Italy. He's a respected voice there in the European system. They tend to be more performance oriented. They're not prescriptive, which places the burden on the inspection authority.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's zone and class now. I think before different. I remember going to actually an IEEE function locally where they were talking about the update for locations, which is Section 18 of the Canadian Electrical Code, and it is quite prescriptive, which is, I guess, the more the North American way, as you say, but just the way that it's discussed and the markings, I believe, are now aligned more with Europe than they are with the United States.
Are there some keywords you can give me? Zone classification?
Now it's zone 0, 1, 2, zone 20, 21, 22, which is dealing with either gas or, I believe, powder, like coal dust.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here we are. And this must be the parent IEC standard then, right here. Okay. All right. Well, that will be duly noted. I do have an account with you guys. Let's see if I can get in.
What's yours right now? Is it class or zone?
Well, ours, okay, so it's actually, we have division, class, and zone. I should, you caught me off guard here. I could get you an answer real quick like here. Let's see, that would be NFPA 70. Let's see how fast we are. I have a bazillion applications going on here. Let's see, nfpa.org.
One thing that was really interesting, that was part of the discussion with the update that I got from the IEEE local chapter, was they said that in Europe, in Canada right now, the hazardous area classification falls under electrical engineers, and I believe it's the same in your jurisdiction in the U.S., but my understanding is in Europe, there's actually a separate group of professionals that that are not electrical engineers and they're not mechanical even necessarily. I think that they're like a whole class unto themselves that really focus on hazardous area classification. So it becomes almost a subgroup of engineering, of the engineering community, which I thought was quite interesting.
Well, that makes sense. I did a design project, maybe 10 years ago, in our aerospace area. I don't know, it was in the automotive testing area, and we had different types of extinguishing systems there, and it had to be inspected by the state because there's classrooms and such and so forth. But I can see that, and I do recall, so here is our area here. Let me get the trusty rusty pointer here. So you can see class and zones, but within these there's divisions. That's what we're calling them here. But the idea that you would have professionals in that area, it makes sense because it turns out, at least in my project, there's a lot of structural engineering that had to happen that our staff architects couldn't deal with when you're dealing with explosive stuff. And I do recall my conduit had to be laid mindful of the sections that would be automatic, or at least they were designed to blow out in case there was an explosion. So you have to be. So I can see where it's well, I guess we call it multidisciplinary. You have to be
very much
person, but you got to be a structural guy because they're going to manage the release of energy structurally. So I guess that makes sense.
But even goes back to mechanical engineers as well. I mean, gas pipes and all those types of things, and even chemical. I mean, there's certain hazards and even whatnot that are associated with just mixing certain chemicals or having them in proximity to each other. You can create an explosive mix that way as well, or pressure vessels, right, which is a whole different type of hazard. So it is very multidiscipline, and I think historically it was a bolt-on to electrical engineers because the thought was, well, we're the only one that sparks, so we need spark to have a fire, so it should be us. But as time's gone on, it's certainly become a lot more apparent how multidisciplined it is.
Yeah, I think I like the idea because actually it was me. I remember our staff architect retained an outside architect, and the outside architect, Albert Kahn Associates, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned their names, but they said, well, no, this is the electrical engineer that has to decide. It's his license. And of course, working for the university, my work was all, because I was licensed, it was all covered. Regardless, I remember there was finger pointing at 4 different levels, even for a high-priced architectural firm that came in to do the structural. They eventually came to me, and it was my PE that was able to get the job passed by the state electrical inspector. Very interesting, or the state inspector. Very interesting. So okay, it looks like I might have gotten to the right place here, but I did want to touch the Canadian Electrical Code in any case. So, anything else you want to bring up here?
Just other things we've talked about before. I mean, we've talked about the sizing of buildings based on historic data that is in the Canadian Electrical Code for the 2015 edition, which is my understanding is it's being used by some, I'll call it more sophisticated consultants, which is really good. That certainly helps with energy usage and footprint and transformer sizing to a degree, right? Something that I know you've mentioned many times before is kind of a passion and pet project of yours.
Oh, we actually got it done. We had the first part of the project done. If I can get over here to our, it was, the final report was released, and of course, any self-respecting research project always concludes with the need for more research, right? So it is covered here, and I think it's on our agenda also. But it's pretty clear. In fact, you can get the report here. If you go back to our site, it all leads back to this particular one. This I uploaded. We were very slow with getting it out there because I didn't want to step on NFPA's toes. It is their project, but as I like to point out, that my boss, when he was at the University of Michigan, uh, was uh, was the catalyst that made this project possible. I moved over to the academic side. I'm a consultant for on a standards project at the College of Engineering, so I am still associated with the University of Michigan. Rich has moved on to the University of Chicago. Regardless, this stuff doesn't go away. We will be following through on this. Let's see. La 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 la. Okay, no, this is before. And we do mention today's teleconference. So to the people who will be seeing this recording, I want them to know that it is formally available here. And also, since Lauren's calling in from the University of Alberta, it turns out that ARC, my colleague of many years on the NEC, sent this to me, and it turns out the Canadians will accept, unlike the NFPA, they are actually permitting, and this is the money phrase, so to say, right here, is that the Canadians are allowing historical maximum watt information recorded over 2 years may be used to calculate load. They use a new term called demonstrated load. The red box is ARC's emphasis. So this now is the Canadian Electrical Code recognizing that the divergence between the observed load and the design load, the observed load as a consequence of the energy regulations, but the design load that was inspired originally by fire safety rules, that divergence is so large now that billions of dollars in energy waste, material waste, and space, in addition to additional hazards to electricians. We have verified it in our report, but the committee may well not be able to accept some of the proposals. So we are planning a phase 2. Remember that in the United States, that unless we can persuade another interest group, we're not going to be able to. Typically, the manufacturers, and to its credit, Eaton actually was the only manufacturer that contributed to the report, because I think in the long run they see that we were going to have to close this enormous gap between observed and design load. So anyway, this is kudos. We probably need to close the call here, but I do want to bring to our visitors and to our listeners of this video recording that the Canadians have now recognized that they've given some language here and a new term called demonstrated load, which has the practical effect of permitting design engineers to design to what they actually see rather than what the prescriptive requirement in Chapter 2 of the NEC is. And I won't go through that, but it is the article where these fire safety rules originated is right here, Article 220. And this is where, if you look to see, as a matter of fact, I guess since we're here, the new language which was installed was right here. Now this is for banks and office buildings, where a building is designed and constructed to comply with the energy code, blah, 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 blah. So let's see, let's go back. I have to. So when I showed you the Canadian, where's the Canadian? This section, this here, so I'm going to take my spotlight, this here, this statement here has, how is that, an analog or an equivalent to what's going on here in the NEC, right along here. And as you can see, this is general lighting loads by occupancy. Let me go back to the previous. Okay, so in the last cycle, oops, I hope I didn't cause problems there. This is what got installed I installed this language with help, of course, but I sort of carried the fire over the mountain on this exception. And my colleague Larry Ayers, also on Committee 1, for building to comply. This should only be for office buildings, though. Office and banks. Offices and banks. I'll have to dig it up. Regardless, in higher education, at least in the United States, most of the space, yeah, here we are. We have to get a little bit closer, and I won't do that because I don't want to take any more of your time, Lauren. But you'll see here, we received the committee found it within their risk tolerance to roll back the requirement for office and bank areas. So office space is a huge component of higher education because most of higher education is administrative space, unlike K-12. So this takes another ding out of it. Now, what we'd like to do is take it another step further, and we'd like to look at the way these occupancies are designed. What we learned as a consequence of Tammy Gammon's research is that these classifications go back 50 years and beyond. 50 years and beyond, and we do need to bring these in line with ASHRAE. But as again, when you're working with volunteers with limited time and standards developers with limited resources, you can only get so much done in every revision cycle. And I think thematically, the NEC this year is trying to capture the movement on the alternative energy and the distributed energy. So we've made progress here, but arguably, you meet a lot of your energy reduction goals if you simply fix this stuff. But hardly anybody understands this stuff. You do, I do, but most of the bureaucratic world and energy management types don't get it. And electrical engineers tend not to be people that are out there beating their chest about things. So that's about all I have time for, Lauren. I probably should run nominally through our agenda here, if you don't mind, and then we can close this.
Okay.
So this was Europe. We do, in today's blog post, I'm carrying over some of the work. We try to make a point about when we talk about smart campus, and even if many of our colleagues aren't, we are, because our systems are interfacing with the municipality and the municipality's infrastructure. And there's as cities get smart, campuses will have to get smart. And then there's going to be this base layer of what I would call infrastructure firmware, interoperability criteria for how campuses, water systems, sewer systems, energy supply, telecommunications, how they interface. There's a great competition among the manufacturers on this. Microsoft, Google, Oracle, the whole catastrophe, they're all after us. I sit in these meetings and I know they're looking at the campus as the promised land because we don't have much standing in their way. All they have to do is persuade a few university presidents to do something, and that's happening right now. At a campus near you, there's slick salespeople trying to sell university presidents packages, and the last people involved are electrical engineers who actually have to make it work. So that much said, that's what this whole thought stream, so to say, is about. And as we start to ramp up again, we are reconstructing ourselves from the old University of Michigan one, and we'll have sponsorship from subscribers and other organizations in the very near future. But for right now, I'm just trying to hold our own. So for the American session, you can see that we have this. We have a number of proposals that were accepted. I just haven't been able to post them. And as the people who I was working with me before, they've offered to help, but of course we're still pretty early in the reconstruction phase. So, and of course, right here, this is where the IEEE would like to double down now on its strengthen its voice on the National Electrical Code, or at least all of these. These are all the standards they want to see more membership. So at least as far as education facilities go, and we are the largest non-residential building construction market, we pretty much have been endorsed by IEEE that we will be the voice for IEEE in education and healthcare facilities. So that's kind of it until next time.
Right on.
Anything else?
You still recording?
Yep.
Nope, nothing else.
Okay, great. See you on the 7th, hopefully. Take care, Lauren. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem.